Hello everyone and welcome to Astroneer Chutes and Ladders. Now, I know I haven't posted many videos recently. I've been very busy with real life stuff, so I do apologize for that. I'm only going to get busier, but I wanted to throw this video out today because we are going to be covering the dice mechanic in Chutes and Ladders. If you have not already seen it, the person that I worked on this build with, MrBulletBuddy, he already put out a video that kind of goes over the entire course, and that video is going to be in the description. If you haven't seen so already, by all means, go check it out, go subscribe to his channel. He's a super awesome builder and a really fun person to work with. But that being said, all of this pretty design is his work. My work was focused all on this dice roll. And if we go inside, we can kind of take a peek at just a little bit of what went on in here. It's kind of complicated. But this video hopefully is going to give you guys an idea of how to make this dice mechanic yourself. And this is all based on the random number principle of basically a seed. So this is only 5 delay repeaters right here, but just to give you an idea of what happens is when you press a button repeater to start, it's going to go down the line and repeat. Now this is totally fine for a timer, except for our purposes, we don't want this to continuously repeat, because when we press a button to get our dice roll, we don't want the roll to continuously be changing. So we want a way to stop this repeating while also displaying a number. So just to break that for now, we can come over here, and this is the entire setup of what you need to do. And it's very repetitive, but we're going to start with the easier side of the two, and we're going to start right over here. So this side basically handles the displaying of the selected number. So if you remember from the circuit video where we have 2 power switches in series with one another, this essentially acts as an AND gate where both of these conditions must be met. Now, what are these conditions? This condition is very easy. The second one basically comes from our enable button, our dice roll. So when we press this button to roll our dice, it triggers both of these buttons. And this button right over here, this is the primary mechanic for this second condition, just essentially flips all these switch. So when we're allowing the roll to happen, all these switches are off, so no power is coming through to these power sensors. And when we want to hold our number, we press our button, all these switches turn on, and wherever the number falls, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have power come through, and we display our number. The upper condition is based on the number that we are selecting, as I kind of hinted at just a second ago. So right here we have 4 selected because this is where we are in our delay repeater line. And there are 2 pins on each of these switches for a reason that I will get to in just a moment. But those are basically the 2 conditions. We have our number being selected and then our enable. And those both go to, or these all go to, power sensors on power gained or lost. And the reason being because when we gain power, we're going to display a number. Then when we press our button again, we're going to turn off these switches, cut the power, so we're going to remove this number and it's just going to be a blank screen. Now what these power switches go to, these go to just a set of 6 buttons, so these represent numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and because you cannot put multiple pins to the backs of these guys, I basically had to map it all out in an extra set of buttons, which is kind of tedious. I know you don't have to do it this way, but this is just the easiest way I found to depict what happens. For example, when you press this, this covers all the right side ones, so this is a 1, this forms a 2 on here, this one is a 3, this one is a 4, and this one is a 5, and then this last one is a 6. So these buttons basically just all depict the right numbers. And just as an example, if we turn that off, we'll see that the 4 disappears. That's our 5, and this one is our 6. So let's go back to 4 just because that's where we are at. So once again, when we lose power, that 4 is going to disappear because this power sensor is going to turn it off. So our board's going to be cleared whenever our roll is going on, and whenever we stop on a number, that number is going to be displayed. And that's what gets handled by this number. Now this section is a little bit more complex. This is our timer section. Now, as I mentioned, we want to make sure that we have a way to stop our timer. So the way that we do that is we have these timers not lead to the next delay repeater. We have this timer open up a set of 2 switches. And once again, these act like AND gates, where we have the second set tied to our enable button, our roll button. And the reason we do this is because we want this to turn off when we're holding a number, because when this is on, this is going to continuously move. So by pressing this button to turn it off, we no longer continue our cycle and we are essentially holding a number. Now these switches right up here, these are the state of the buttons. So this first one right over here, it's going to turn this switch on and allow power through. And if we get power all the way through to this power sensor, it's going to turn the switch off because we're removing our condition, and we're going to trigger the next button. So essentially, only if we have power coming through here do we trigger the next button switch. So right now, because we are not enabled, even though we are in the 4th button position, we don't have any power coming through. So we're not continuing to move to our next delay repeater. So when we press our roll button to clear our number and allow the rolling mechanism to take over again, this switch is going to open. Our power sensor right here is going to trigger our next delay repeater. So we're going to start on the 5. And then it's also going to turn off this switch. And the reason it does this is because this is how we clear the previous number. Because if we don't clear the previous number, all of these switches basically stay open, and we're going to end up triggering every single power switch. So we only want one of these to be open. Now when we get to the 5 button, we're going to open the next switch, and only if we are allowing the roll to happen does this get power, and it continues on. Now what these guys also do is these guys also affect the number being displayed here. So you can see that there are 2 connections for each of the delay repeater buttons. And that's because we are going to clear the previous one and start the next one. For example, right now we are reading a 4. So if we take a look at the 5th delay repeater button, it's going to close this switch that's representing our 4, and it's going to open the switch that represents our 5. So when we stop it on the 5, this switch will be open, this switch will now be closed, and we will have our 5 come through and display on our power sensor. So the easiest way to see this is to have it work in operation. So I like to have these delay repeaters on 3 ticks because it makes it work pretty quickly. But I understand that that might be a little bit hard to understand what's going on. So just as an example, we're going to click that roll, and we rolled a 2. Now you might see a little bit of a delay before it gets to its final number, and that's because the delay repeaters need to finish the cycle before it transitions to the final number. So sometimes you might just see one more tick over, and just letting it roll again. We'll wait over here, and you see again it had one last tick before it went over to the final position, so a 5. So we rolled a 5 there. So just as to show an example, I'm going to spin these guys all up to the highest amount so we can really see what's going on with these guys. So with all of these guys at 25, this is now going to be a very slow cycle. So we're enabling this to happen. So you can see that what this does is it allows power to come through here and closes. So once power comes through by this opening this switch, this triggers and goes to the next button. So as the time happens, we continuously move on to the next one. And this is all due to transitioning this switch. Because remember, this lower set of switches is enabled right now. So these are all letting power through. So the second this opens up power, we get to our power sensor, we turn it back off, and then we start the next button. So that's the general premise that's happening here. And then don't forget, taking a look at these switches, every button is going to close the previous one and open the next one. Close the previous one and open the next one. Close the previous one and open the next one. And this is not doing anything because these switches are closed at the moment. So these two, the second condition switches, are in opposite states of one another, because when we press our roll button, we want to stop power coming through here, and we want to allow power coming through here. So because of the delay with rolling a button, I just wanted to display that here. So we rolled a 4 in quotations, the delay repeater finishes its cycle, and now we have a 5 displayed. So that's kind of how I did my dice. I know it can be a little bit complicated because it looks fairly complex, but if you kind of break it down into its own little sections and figure out what exactly is doing what, it's not the most difficult thing. This is a little bit different from the RNG setup that I already put a video out on, just because it was pre-Automation 2.0, so this is one of the Automation 2.0 utilities that have been updated with the new tools like the power switches and the delay repeaters. But if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask them. I would be more than happy to answer them. I know I said that I had been falling behind a little bit with putting out videos on YouTube, and it's also because I primarily stream on Twitch, so if you are looking for some new content, by all means, follow me over there, or subscribe to this YouTube channel. I do try to post here sometimes, but as I have said, it has been a little bit infrequently. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I do monitor them, and I do try to respond as quickly as possible, but have a good rest of your day. And don't forget to like the video.